penance. It's penance. But I wanted to put a couple of things up, but I'll just make mention of them. The book of Luke chapter 15, we're going to read starting at verse 1. Very familiar verse of Scripture. Then drew near unto him all the publicans and sinners for to hear him. The Pharisees and scribes murmured, saying, This man receiveth sinners, and eateth with them. And he spake this parable unto them, saying, What man of you, having 100 sheep, if he lose one of them, doesn't leave the 99 in the wilderness and go after the one which is lost until he find it? And when he has found it, he layeth it upon his shoulders, rejoicing. When he comes home, he calleth together his friends and neighbors, saying unto them, Rejoice with me, for I have found my sheep, which was lost. I say unto you that likewise joy shall be in heaven over one sinner that repenteth, more than over 99 just persons who need no repentance. I want to preach to you this morning from the title, Leaving No Man Behind. Leaving no man behind. You put your Bibles down and you promise to pray and worship with me this morning and give him a good hand clap of praise. Hallelujah. I was riding around yesterday with Brother Captain, and we was talking, and we talked about all kinds of different stuff, but one of the things that was brought up was he had met a couple of real cowboys. I was a little bit offended, just a tad bit, because when he said this was a real cowboy. Who's he got in the truck all this time? He made mention that maybe a hat didn't make a cowboy. I agree with that. Boots don't make a cowboy. I agree with that. But apparently he didn't know who he had riding around with him. Because I was a real cowboy. And we were talking about the fact that cowboys of today are very rare, right? You don't see many of them. There's not a whole lot of them left. Not a whole lot of real cow-punching jobs anymore until you get into maybe some Montana, down in New Mexico, certainly down in far south Texas on King's Ranch. But most of those guys are vaqueros, or from Mexico or New Mexico. And cowboys today, they're a dying breed. But part of what their job is today, and this guy was relating to him, the fact that, they go and travel quite a ways because ranches will call and say, look, I've got a lost cow, or I've got a lost herd of cows. And, most of these ranches don't really employ full-time cowboys. So they call these few guys that are left, and they'll saddle up their horses and drive 4 or 5 hours maybe just to go find a cow on a ranch that's lost, or maybe a cow that's had a calf in the brush and trying to find it. Their job is to find those lost animals. Growing up, that was sort of what we did. On a Friday evening, Grandpa and I would get out and we'd run cattle probably across, 20, 30 square miles, and but it's open range at the time, and we would get in a beat up jalopy of a truck. We'd start driving in old back roads, and we look for fresh sign of where the cows might be, because they could be absolutely anywhere. And we might find a cow or two in certain places, and we decide on Saturday morning, whenever I got up at 3 o'clock in the morning and started loading the horses in the trailer and saddling them up and getting all them 15 cow dogs loaded up. And Dad and I, he'd have some coffee on, and we'd drink a little coffee, and then we'd head to Pawpaw's. And before daylight was even, you couldn't see nothing more than just a shadow of a horse's head. We would be sitting in the saddle waiting to go. And it was our job that day to find that herd of cattle that we needed to bring 15, 20 miles across the side camp where we had a big set of pens, and we would do then what with that herd we needed to do. And so there was many times we would spend quite a bit of time sitting and waiting on those dogs to start to bark, so they had found the cattle we was looking for. I wanted to play you the trailer or a piece of the movie from Black Hawk Down. And those of you that are movie buffs and have watched Black Hawk Down, you would remember the discussion and the orders that was given at the end of the movie, where they said, the old boy looked and said, "Look, we've got a helicopter down, and there's men that are down, and we're going to go get those men." And one of the soldiers said, "But those men have to be dead. You've seen the numbers. You see the things going on. And they got to be dead." And the statement was made, but you don't know that for sure. And we're not going to leave any man behind. Some of you may have saw Hacksaw Ridge, basically the documentary of Desmond Doss, who was the conscientious objector, who became a medic. The power behind that story is absolutely phenomenal. And the way they portrayed him in the movie just had to be a piece or a portion of who he was and what he was that day or 3 days on the battlefield, where he just stayed and pulled those dying and wounded men off of a battlefield at his own peril, to the time that he got shot. And the movie just showed and portrayed such an absolute hero. Leave no man behind. It was a few weeks ago, I was thinking of something to try to preach one Sunday, and that statement came to my mind, but that was all was there. Last night when I went to bed, for a couple of hours, in my mind, in that land somewhere between fully awake and fully asleep, where dreams occur, and where it feels like you're a part of doing things, and you know you're asleep, but you're really not. I began to preach, and I saw myself preaching this message, and in my mind, I'm thinking, you need to wake up, you need to write some things down so that you can reiterate those things. And because if you go on to sleep, you're going to forget that. And I never woke up. It was for seemed like hours that I laid there before I finally went to sleep. And I began to think about just a statement. I got here this morning and I looked up the motto, "Leave no man behind." And it really centers around three distinct pieces of war and fighting and those types of things. One is it is the treatment and the extraction of wounded warriors from a battlefield. It is the treatment and the extraction. You getting them off. It's what Desmond Doss did. He treated them and he pulled them to the cliff edge and he handed them down so that they could receive medical treatment. It's what he did. The other thing is it's the recovery of any who were killed in action. For those of you who've been in the military, if you have been in the military, it is an unwritten rule. And it's a decision that every officer has to make at certain times, whether or not you leave those who are dead or you carry them out. It also includes the recovery or the training of POWs. The thing that struck out at me when I read some of the military history, some of the things, and there are dozens and dozens of documented times where we have went in to retrieve our killed or our wounded, and it has cost us more lives. It just simply said it poses or carries a significant risk. The military, for sure. Law enforcement, for sure. There is the understanding of if we're going to get into a fight, we're going to get into the fight together. there. But most battles, the warriors on both sides are not fighting for the general or the lieutenant colonel. Most of them aren't really fighting for the president or the leader of their country. They're fighting for the guy next to them. They understand that it's important for me to do whatever I can do to protect him at whatever my peril is, whatever the cost is. I want to protect him. Why? Because I know that I've got somebody over here that's doing the same for me. I don't have eyes in the back of my head. I need somebody else to watch my six or keep my head on a swivel. There's something today about living for God that I wonder if we have lost over the years. And that is the understanding that God desires to absolutely have no single person go to hell. God does not want a single solitary individual to make a bad choice or make a wrong turn. His goal and His intentions are to make sure that you make heaven your home. And it's up to you and it's up to me to make sure that my brothers and my sisters make heaven their home. I must always make sure that I don't leave a single soul behind. This morning the church may not have a single sinner here, but the sermon is toward a sinner that needs to make the right choice. And it's the church folks that have forgotten who they're praying for. We have to pray for one another. You see, I remember times back years ago where you would come to church and there would be someone that wasn't in church that day. And you would wonder, well, what happened to sister so-and-so or brother so-and-so? What happened to my friend over here, my friend over there? Wonder what happened. Why aren't they here? Why wouldn't they be here? I thought everything was good. I thought everything was hunky-dory and man, it was doing good. And you would be restless throughout the whole service to the point where somewhere in that service and the altar call was given, you would hit the altar not for yourself, not because you had done anything wrong, but you're praying for the friend, for that saint that's struggling, that's trying, that's sitting out there lost like this sheep and going, I don't know what to do. But you're in the gap. You're praying. You're interceding. What man of you? I'm not being chauvinistic today, but that statement asks a lot. What kind of person are you? This Bible's masculine. I'm not picking on you lady folks. For the most part, you're the intercessors. But what he's really saying is, what kind of a person would you be if you were satisfied with 99 and there was just one person in your circle of influence that did not get to heaven? What kind of person are you? What a question. Are you happy with the fact that you've got lost family? That the church isn't brimming full and running out the front doors, people standing in the parking lot? But we're happy with our status quo. That's not the motto. That's not leaving any man behind. That's being satisfied with just mine and no more. There's times in all of our lives that we find ourselves kind of out in the dark. We find ourselves like Peter around the fire in front of Pilate's porch and having that Roman come up to him and say, I think I recognize you. You're one of them. Because of the situation, no, I'm not one of them. No, I'm pretty sure you're one of them holy rollers. You're one of them Pentecostals. You're one of them apostolics. You're one of them Jesus freaks. Oh, no. You know you got me. No, I'm a regular guy. I'm a regular girl. No. No, you're one of them. And then you may may not cuss, but you may partake. You'll deny it the third time. I believe in today's church world, we've fallen short many times in mistaking the fact that when Jesus looks at us, we take that as acceptance and not condemnation. Because when Jesus looked at Peter, the Bible tells me that Peter was struck in his heart. He knew he had done wrong. The words that Jesus had told him, when Jesus said, look, you're going to deny me 3 times before that rooster crows. And about that time, that rooster kicks off in the background, and Peter's heart stops, and his eyes go across the top of the crowd, and they find Jesus is standing up on the porch, and Jesus does nothing more than looks at him. Peter breaks and leaves heartbroken. I failed him. I've done the worst thing that I said I would never do. But no, I did it. I remember when Glenn stopped coming to church. One of my best friends. His mom and dad. My mom and dad. A Sunday dinner at their house. Got in all kind of trouble. Shaved a shepherd home one Sunday afternoon in between Sunday school and church. But as we got a little older, I noticed Glenn didn't come to church a few nights. Then I heard that he'd been out drinking, carousing around. See, back when churches had altar calls that had pull to them, I remember going back and kneeling in the back section under the balcony there in Starks. Glenn was sitting there. He had him a little beard, a little mustache. He got him a tattoo. He got married. He was doing anything he was big enough to do. I knelt beside him and put my arm around him. I begged him. I begged him with everything I had. I said, if you keep going down this road, you're not going to be happy with the result. He gripped the pew. He refused to move. His world and his choices have dictated to him today things that he wouldn't be happy with. You wouldn't be happy with. Nobody wants to go through divorces. Nobody wants to have kids by different parents. And there's heartache and brokenness. And yet, Brother Sister Glendale was just such wonderful people. I begged him. Every time he would come, I'd put my arms around him. I'd hug him and say, God, come on, man. But no. You say, well, I would never do that. Well, let me tell you, it is easier to fall into that trap than it is to be strong. Because there was a time in my life that I found myself in Glenn's shoes. And I remember those services, and I would say no. No, I'm all right. I'm okay. But it was Glenn's dad, brother. Brother Glendale, Brother Harper, Brother Bradford, but suffered. Brother O'Brien. Who was the epitome of character and ethics and morals, because they had 100 sheep. They knew where 99 of them were at, but they never failed to reach out for just that one. Because you see, somewhere they had an understanding of what it meant to leave no man behind. They knew what it meant to ignore all of the success that there was and be unhappy over that one little failure. You see, in our lives, we become way too happy because we feel like we're being successful. And we feel like everything's going fine, and we feel like everything's happening okay. But when you look in the mirror and there's some little piece, some little part, well, I'm okay because, my family, we're going to church, but what about your mom? What about your dad? What about your cousin? What about your coworker? What about your friend? If they're going to go to hell, how can you be happy? How can you be satisfied knowing that there's somebody else left that you have to reach? That you have to pull for? Not the preacher, not the evangelist, not somebody else. I'm talking to you. One of the guys, Black Hawk Down, had made it out and escaped, and he was in that conference, and he looked at what it was, if he was a gunny sergeant, and he simply said, I can't go back. This is what the gunny sergeant looked at him with love in his eyes, but he smiled at him and said, I understand. I get it. It's what you do right now that makes the difference later. A young man sat there with his weapon in his hand and watched them load up in the Humvees and the helicopter leave. Old Sergeant Gunny looked in his side view mirror. He made eye contact one more time, and as the Humvee pulls away, young man hollers, hang on. Hang on a minute. He runs and chases the Humvee down and climbs in, making a decision right now that makes a difference later. You see, I'm pulling today, not necessarily for the sinner, but I'm pulling today for something to change on the inside of us. That somehow we begin to realize that it's up to me. Not the one next to me, not the one on the next few back in front of me, but I'm the one. It's up to me to make sure that I don't leave a single soul behind. I have to spend enough time in prayer. I have to spend enough time witnessing. I have to spend enough time reaching into the community and into my family and into my friends. I have to beg them. I have to pull them. I have to love them when they're hurt and mean and ugly. I have to take them when it looks like they're not even going to make it. But I somehow have to pull them to an altar. I cannot leave a single soul behind. There's always hope. I hate this makes Sister Tracy. I hate those SBC that poor little old Chihuahua dog looking at you, poor little. You got that old gal singing them old sad songs. Oh, I just go, come on. It's a dog. If it died, get another dog. There's lots of dogs. If it's that bad, it's got one eye, half a leg, you don't want to adopt that dog. It's a dog. But by the same token, that commercial for Wounded Warriors. The latest one I saw was he was there, he got no, he like Lieutenant Dan, he got no legs. Nothing from the knees down. And you got this sad music playing in the background. Trace Adkin trying to get you to give $19 a month. He's putting on his prosthetics. It's designed to reach in and tug at your heartstrings, right? But this old boy, last one I saw, he said, I got this, I can do this. Don't feel sorry for me. I worked some with vets, wounded vets. I've got a deputy friend of mine today that was shot in a drug raid. He's in Houston. We hold out hope for him, you know. But there's nobody who really knows if there's anything happening. They just keeping him alive. I drove to Houston to see him. Did several years ago. I know deputies that for months made the trip back and forth. But today I know for a fact that there are very few that come and knock on his door and visit him. It's hard to do when it doesn't seem like there's any hope. It's hard to do when it doesn't seem like there's anything going to change. But yet that family's still there. They're still taking his legs and bending his legs and moving his legs and moving his arms, trying to keep the muscles working. On the anniversary of his shooting, we write wonderful things on Facebook. We don't want to leave him behind, but in many cases he's been left behind. What's the tragedy of perhaps him laying there and hearing everything that's being said? Watching without his eyes moving everything that goes on around him. And knowing and seeing and walking, that's not something he's probably ever going to do. But he knows. What kind of feeling is that whenever all of a sudden he realizes, you know, I haven't seen so-and-so and they haven't been to visit me. We fight for one another. You fight not for yourself. You fight for somebody else. I live for God to get to heaven, yes, but I do what I do for somebody else. What would it be like to that sinner when you stop knocking on their door. When you stop calling and say, man, I was just checking on you. Hey, girl, I'm just checking on you. I just wanted you to know I just been missing you. You know, been praying for you. You send them a text. You send them leave them a voicemail, whatever the case may be. What happens inside of their heart and their mind when all of a sudden they realize that fewer and fewer Christians are calling or talking or texting, and they're going, well, I'm trying, but I'm not making it. I'm out here, I need help, but I don't know how to ask for it. And they're looking, and yet you leave them behind because you lose the hope that anything's going to change. I know it's not a popular message. I know it's not popular preaching, but somehow we have to wake up. It's rolling down to the last days. Revelation is coming true. It's happening. You got Jews crying out even quickly. Come. We want our God to come and be with us, rescue us, save us, reveal Himself to us, and we're going to be happy with just barely making it by, and we ain't won a single soul to God. Shame on His church today. What happened? What happened in those days where you could walk into the church house almost any time of the day, many times, many hours into the night, and in the darkness there would be a old saint of God knelt down somewhere. You couldn't see them. And they was like Hannah. They were just moaning and weeping in the Holy Ghost. Sometimes it was for their own kids. Sometimes it was for their husband or their wife. And sometimes it was just for somebody that they knew was struggling. I wouldn't be here today if Brother Glendale or Brother Harper or Brother Barry Perkins, Sister Lorraine Dahl wouldn't be here today if they'd quit. Wouldn't be here today if they had stopped reaching out and praying for me and calling, sending messages. We miss you. It changed the way that I view what living for God's all about. I felt one night that Glenn was going to die. I walked to the back. It was the last time I ever saw him in church. I walked to the back and knelt beside him and said, Glenn, man, I said, I got a bad feeling, man. You need to change what you're doing. He cried. He gripped the pew. He did everything but walk down to the front. He walked out to the day. And I began to pray. I called Brother Glendale. I said, Glendale, I said, I got a really bad feeling about Glenn. I remember Brother Glendale's voice. How he would go, oh, son, I do too. I said, we're going to have to pray, Brother Glendale. I went on a 7-day fast. Stayed at the church many hours. I never saw Glenn come back to church while I went there. I don't know if my prayer had anything to do. Every time I would call, or every time I go to Starks, or I'd run into Sister Glendale or Brother Glendale and say, "How's Glenn?" "Oh, he's trying." And then I got a call. Got a call one Sunday, middle of the day. It was Sister Glendale on the phone. She said, "Brother Andy." I said, "Hey, Sister Glendale, how you doing?" She said, "I just wanted to tell you, Glenn come back home this morning." I didn't quite understand what she was saying. I said, "What are you saying, Sister Glendale?" She said, "Glenn came back through this morning." That's just one more that I don't have to leave behind. You see, that's one on this side of the fence. I just sat down with him at a funeral not too many months ago, maybe a year or so ago, when I sat down and ate gumbo, potato salad. And I was able to hug his neck. Does he have this? Yeah, he's got the scars. Was there any hope? Not much. But now I've got to go back. Last night, in that dream state, I saw my good friend, Jonathan Sullivan, my assistant pastor's son. Spent so much time with him. Played the drums at Starks. I'd go to spend the night at their house. I can't go into all of it. There was a situation, a satanic situation. Blew Starks apart. I called Jonathan multiple times in that time frame to talk him out of killing people. I couldn't tell him I wanted to kill him too, but I called him and said, "Man, it's not worth it. Come on, I'll meet you at church, we'll pray. I want to pray, I don't feel like praying. Come on, man." And Jonathan, today, it's a long way from God. In my dream, I saw myself on the phone. I heard myself saying, "Jonathan, God's coming soon. I'm asking you, please, whatever you do, go to church somewhere. Are you still in Oklahoma? If so, I'll come see you." It was like I was there. Then I don't even know, I couldn't even tell you what the response was. But that feeling of desperation, of begging and pleading, "Please, please, Jonathan is not the only one. You see, I could go through, and I know you could go through too this morning. You could name him. Jonathan's brother Todd. I can bring it closer to home to you. There's people in your own families that you have stopped asking. Somehow, I've got to be like old Desmond Doss. Bullets flying over my head, being shot, wounded, my hands raw from letting the men down on those ropes. My hands can't hit my feet are numb and cut. I've got blood flowing out of multiple holes in my body. I'm dying on my feet. And I'm looking down there as the last one goes down, and I'm turning back around, and I can't do anything but pull myself. Because I remember I saw a soldier that I thought I could save. When's the last time you drove through your community and saw a sinner that you could save? Today, as we stand to our feet, I haven't done it here, but we will at some point in time. We'll institute a backslider prayer base. And I'll preach the message that Brother Carter preached at one of our Azusa Street Brothers rallies. But this morning, I want you to go into your mind. I want you to spend just a brief moment today. I want you to think of somebody that you think is hopeless. That you think God is just never, he's not going to, they're not going to. I don't pray too long. If God was going to do it, would he have done it already? Isn't it just like Satan? I want you to take a moment this morning. I just want to take a few minutes. And I want you to pray for that person. Whoever it is. It don't have to be, it could be anybody. Only you and you know who that person is. It comes to mind when you think of, I don't know if he'll ever come to church. She'll ever come to church. I don't know if they're just too mean. They're too far gone. They're too much of an addict. They're too much of a drunk. They're too much of a whatever. He said, what man would forget about all the good going on and not go out into the middle of the dark night for one? And it says, he brings him in. He's got him over his shoulder. He's holding his feet down against him. He walks in. He's got 99 sheep that are fine, but he don't even talk about them. He says, do you see who I got? What it would be for that person to kneel down in an altar in the next few weeks. And you'd be able to kneel down beside him and say, look what I got. Look who has been found. Then the Bible says all of heaven rejoices. Because of the Lord. I'm thankful, Lynn, that you're doing good. Oh, John. Jonathan. Today, God, I want you to reach down into Jonathan's heart. He He has no idea. But I'm praying for him right now. I need you to take and reach down into the hardness of the hurt that was done to him, that makes him feel the way that he feels. And I get it, God. That hatred runs deep. God, I'm asking you to do whatever it takes today. Wherever he's at this morning, whatever he's doing, I know you can do it, Jesus. I want you to let him know Randy's praying. Let his heart be pricked. I want you to do that, God. I'm asking you to do that. Because I'm not going to be happy as long as he's lost. Jesus, I beg you. I beg you. Reach down and stir him. Change him. I'm asking you to do it. I promise you. Before these people, this week I'm going to call John for you. And I'm going to beg him. Because I love him. My desire to see him saved. Let me stand in the gap for him when he cannot. I'm asking you to prepare that ground for a phone call. Because when I call him, I need your wisdom. Send me out to them. I trust that you will do that. You will do that. In your name. I pray. Lord, as we dismiss today, God, I'd ask you, I've been asked, Lord, many times in my life, what do you want to see in the church? I just want to see somebody that I've never seen. I want to see somebody willing to pray for the lost. God, if there's anything I want from New Life Tabernacle, I want you to break up their hearts. Take their minds and their priorities and their sight off the things of the world and put it back on the things of God. That's all I want. Because that's what we're supposed to do. We can't leave a single person behind, God. We have to pull on every single person. We have to beg and plead. We have to be wise as serpents, but we have to somehow change people's lives. We have to pull them to an altar if need be. God, grant us that wisdom. And grant us that conviction in our lives and in our church services. That's what I want, God. And I'm asking you to help us do it. God, I'm asking you this week to put somebody in everybody's path that they would know that you're moving.